into the, you are now tuned into the, you are now tuned into the Fraudcast.
I'm drinking Dr. Pepper because I am out of my own soda, which is Dr. Pepper Cherry Zero or Cherry Coke Zero. Those are my sodas. We're out, completely out of everything. We've been needing to go grocery shopping all week. Well, we do like Instacart through Wegmans, and we just haven't been. And How to Life Mate just started this new job recently, right? Where before he was working from home over the whole course of the pandemic. So for 2 years, he'd been working at home and he was working these overnight shifts because they were producing this morning news show they'd have to be done producing it by 4 a.m. So they would work like 9 p.m. to 4 a.m. He worked in the basement here, but he was always here. So he never went anywhere. And I've been working at home for the last 2 years. And even prior to pandemic, I was working from home 3 days a week already. So we spent 2 years with us working from home on these schedules. And he's the one who sort of takes the lead on grocery shopping. And so he was doing it all the time. But now that he just started this new job where he's actually in the studio, he actually he worked for a TV studio in DC. So he actually has to go and he works the morning news. So he has to go in, he starts work at 3 a.m. He gets up at like 1 a.m., which means he goes to sleep at like 6 p.m. So like not only is he working outside of the house, but his schedule is completely different. Now, this has completely changed our home dynamic about like I used to cook dinners and like all of a sudden I'm driving baby stepbrother to school some days, but then he's switching and now he's going to be working over the weekends and his weekend will be like Wednesday and Thursday or so, I don't know, but it's completely changed everything. So our grocery shopping regularity like isn't like all to bring this back, to make a short story long. Our grocery shopping is just completely off kilter. So now like we don't have anything in the house, like nothing. There's been, he usually would be doing this stuff, but he's like just now he's leaving work now. So
yeah.
And it's like, I don't know. I was running out of creamer this morning for my coffee. Like I had enough for my coffee, which was fine.
Yeah.
Like, one time, this whole like we can't get right back on a normal schedule. It's like one day I ran out of creamer. Ran out of milk. Like the kid drinks regular milk. I use almond milk like in my cereal. So we ran out of both those kinds. Like I had nothing. How do you run out of all of these things
all
at
the
one
staples?
time?
Yeah.
At one time, right? So that leads me to be drinking Dr. Pepper, regular Dr. Pepper right now because I probably shouldn't be having this much caffeine right now, but
I'm on number 3 cup of coffee and it's noon.
I had 2. I had 2 cups of coffee. What time did you wake up? What time did I wake you up this morning? 6? Oh, okay. So early, yeah, okay. I got up at like 7:30.
She usually wakes up at 8, so today was not fun. She was all thrown off her normal, schedule. So, oh well.
That's the thing about like kids, right? Is like just when they get on okay, I figured it out. I got them on a schedule, then they change, right?
Yeah, well, she's also like terrified of something in the room. I don't know. So she was like waking up screaming, and then she keeps pointing to the corner where the curtains are and waving, and I'm like, oh hell no.
Oh no. Well, okay. So I didn't want to say this yet. I mean, I wasn't planning on telling you this, but I there's something about Kaya. This.
Oh yeah.
Right? This, right? Right. There's something Definitely. She's got something. For you guys just listening to us, Lexi, it's Lexi joining me today.
Hi, everyone.
We're going to talk about Netflix docuseries Sins of Our Mother, the Lori Vallow story thing, Doomsday Mom, Cult Mom. We're going to talk about all that. But before we get to that, so yeah, there's something about Kaya. Like, okay, so Lexi and I are both kind of woo-woo on about a lot of stuff. 100% woo-woo. Crystals, spirits, energy, all of that kind of stuff, right? We're both like deep into it. So
and we both talked about how we have that, we believe in science, of course, but we also believe in everything else. I mean, there's so much more to this universe than
there's so much of what I've I've learned and sort of been immersed in and is evidence-based, right? Like evidence-based mediumship is, I know your medium friend does this and stuff. And it's all based on evidence. There's evidence, there's things to prove it and back it up, right? Like we're not just gonna, and you're about to be a fucking doctor, for God's sakes. like obviously like science and medicine. But what is fascinating, you're going to be a doctor of Oriental medicine, which I think is such an amazing blend of the Eastern and Western culture medicines, definitely. Which I fully support. Because obviously I have MS, right? Like I take a disease modifying there. Obviously, like Chinese herbs aren't going to stop the demyelinization of my cells. But I love acupuncture for treating so many of the symptoms and other things that are associated with my MS. And it's just, I love it. I love it. I mean, so it's a good mix. Anyway, so Kaya, obviously we know this, she's got something.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you know what direction she's leading with it, or like, is she going witchy path? Is she more spiritual? Like, what is she? I don't know what you've seen with her yet.
I think it's more spiritual. I mean, I'm very open. I've had a lot of experiences with the other side. I'll leave it at that. It's too much to get into, but
we're going to save those for other episodes.
But she's definitely connecting. And I don't feel like whatever's here is evil. I don't feel like it's bad. At one point there was a bad spirit here. It's gone. But it's just awkward. I go in the room and I'm looking in the corner and I'm like, kind of like giving it a look. I'm just like, okay.
Do you feel it? Do you see it? Yes. Or okay.
I don't see it, but I feel it.
It's okay. So do you think she's scared of it, or is she just scared because she's seen something that startled her because she was sleeping? Or
I don't know. Because like sometimes I'll hear her talk to it and she doesn't speak obviously good English yet. So it's just blah, 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 blah. But
I can understand her. I speak Kaya.
It's like a happy babbling. So I'm like, okay, this isn't bad. But I think, I don't know if it's a relative, like somebody watching over her, like a spirit guide, or if it's just something that I've brought in. I don't know.
Interesting.
But, maybe there's more than one thing going on here. I'm too scared to tap into it right now because I'm so busy. I don't want to, it's like, you don't want to.
You just got to ask him to stay back for now. Like, I don't have time to delve into this.
What I did. I was like, okay, hi, yes, okay, you come in peace, no negative stuff. Like, I will sage this apartment. Okay, so
I'll bring some Palo Santo over next time I'll come over. We should get, so I know I've talked about my spiritual guru sort of Shaya, and I know she actually is gonna, I think I mentioned this, she's gonna come do an episode with us. She's gonna do an interview, she can do some readings. She's done a bunch of readings on me, past life, sort of not mediumship necessarily, but she was doing a reading on me when a spirit came forward, because you can't control that, right? When you're doing mediumship, the spirit side sees you, and I'm gonna get goosebumps. But she wasn't doing a mediumship reading, but I did have a spirit come through to say
super
hi.
Cool.
Yeah, and that's a whole personal story stuff, so I'll save that. But we should have her come on, and I would love for her to read Kaya. And she just needs, as her being a minor, she would need your permission, and obviously, she would ask. Obviously, she's going to ask Kaya for her permission in her own way. She can give it. But anyway, you guys, I'm sorry. That was not even what I was planning to go with all this. But yeah. So welcome, Lexi. She's kind of becoming a fixture, whether she likes it or not. I've kind of like reeled her in. And we both watched there's a Netflix docuseries about this woman named Lori Vallow. Now, some of you guys may have heard of her before. There have been Dateline episodes. There have been 2020 episodes. There's a podcast about it called, I think, The Madness of Two. And there's a lot of different things about it. Her name is Lori Vallow. She has a husband, Chad Daybel, and they called her like cult mom, doomsday mom. The story initially started coming out when her kids were missing, when we'll explain all the relations, but there's like a grandparents of her kids was like, I haven't talked to JJ in a while. Where are they? Where are the kids? And that's kind of where the story initially kind of sprouted. That's when it made it to the media, really. So there were a lot of like 2020s and things like that following the case from certain angles. But at the time, those things were limited. And especially in the actions, like the kids hadn't been found. The kids' bodies hadn't been found yet. So there's been a lot of variations on the story. I became obsessed with it. So when this Netflix one came out, I was like, what more can it teach me? I've seen everything. I've read, I've heard all the angles. This one I thought was really interesting because it was actually told primarily from the perspective of her oldest son, Colby, which is somebody who is completely absent from the other ones. And his side, I would always, you only got bits and pieces of the story, also because just of when the timeline of it came out, right? And so now, like, more stuff has come out. He obviously cooperated with this. You get a lot of really interesting stuff. And it was interesting what this documentary or docuseries, whatever you want to call it, what it brought forward. Because in some of the other ones I've seen, or listening to the podcast and stuff, there's like different details that were emphasized.
I think like this story is so absolutely insane. Like the top crime writers, like mystery novel or crime writers, I don't even think they could create a story as like twisted and awful and just like all over the place as this really truly was. It's so sad.
It is. And I was talking to some girlfriends about it. And one of them was like, I don't know if I can watch that because, the kids and the triggering and all this stuff. And I get that, totally get that. But what makes this story fascinating to me, as I love true crime stuff, obviously. So we've got that aspect. But I also love cults, right? You do too. We love watching and reading these things about all these crazy cults. I've actually been, my hyper fixation on like YouTube video, not really YouTube videos, just other documentaries, has been like conspiracy theories right now, which I think I crossed over it from cults. Like, if you like that, watch this, So I've been watching a lot of stuff on these like crazy conspiracy theories and adrenochrome and all this other stuff. Sorry, QAnon.
Hey, I'm all about conspiracy theories to a degree. I'll be honest.
Well, I'm fascinated watching these things, like all of this stuff about it. So anyway, so she's got this cult, like there's this cult crossover. That aspect, it's this religion, her crazy cult stuff is what, to me, was really the fascinating angle about this, was watching her descent into madness. And maybe part of the reason why I really liked this docuseries. I liked how it was done. I loved seeing Colby's side of it. He was able to give, truthful, sort of, accurate, close details of stuff that I, hadn't come out before. And it's also her mother plays a prominent role in it as well. And Lori Vallow's mother, and they both clearly are not on her side. They love her, but they believe that she has had part of murdering these kids, which is spoiler alert. But that's not really what the story's about, although that is obviously huge. It's how all the rest of that, how that unravels and how that gets to that point where she and Chad are now awaiting trial for murder of these children and murder of his wife and her ex-husband and all this other stuff.
How many more people do you think that they would have murdered if they didn't get caught? I mean, they had that list, and it's just like, wow, it's crazy. It's
absolutely crazy. So let's get into it. Let us get into it. Pull up my notes on this here. So like I said, it's on Netflix. It's called Sins of Our Mother. It's a 3-part docuseries. So I know each one is like an hour and a half, 2 hours, something like that. Decent amount of time. Like each episode is kind of like decently long, but not super long, like not feature length each, if that makes sense. But it's only 3 episodes. So it opens with this scene, this body camera footage. Now, if you don't know anything about the story, you're not going to understand where this fits in. But I love the way that they did this, because they open with this body cam footage of the cop meeting with this guy named Charles Vallow, who is or was Lori's ex-husband, who is now deceased. And he had called the cops on Lori because there was like, he didn't know where the kids were. And he was like, she's crazy and she's threatened to kill me and calls me a demon named Ned and all of these things. And if you don't know anything about the story, it's like, who's crazy? She is or he is? Like, he's obviously trying to convince the cops that Lori's crazy. And what we know now is all of this stuff was true and it was crazy. But at the time, he's not able to really convince the cops of this.
Yeah. And he was so calm. I mean,
Yeah. So that's how we start, so we start right off with that. And then we go into, you got Colby starting the story. And so when we open, and can we just talk about how hot Colby is?
He is super, super attractive.
Good looking kid. And he starts off with like the cops showing up at his house and asking him if he knows where Tylee and JJ are. So that's where he brings us into the story. And then they go back and they show this, images of, like it's Colby and Lori's mom are sorting pictures, talking about how they can't really look at pictures of Lori right now. They're just putting them away because, may want them someday, type of. Oh, sorry. I always do that. I knock that out.
Technical difficulties, everyone.
I know. I'm always kicking that. So we have, sorting pictures and stuff. So we start out with this overarching picture of there's some crazy stuff going on. Cops are involved. Her son and her mother are both not on her side. So that's where we enter this story. So we know that going in, which is good because to me anyway, like I was happy knowing what I do about the story, like knowing that they don't believe her. I'm like, okay. They think she's as nuts as the rest of the world thinks she's nuts. Okay. So they're telling this story basically of how like Lori's chronology growing up and stuff, and how they show her parents and they were religious. Dad seems kind of crazy a little bit on his religion. Mom's like, yeah, we brought him up in the LDS church, but Dad was like, well, then the devil's getting on her shoulder and all this stuff. And okay, cast him out. Okay, whatever you say, sir. We don't get a lot of her. They talk about how Lori had gotten married, and then I think had Colby, and then got divorced, and then married Kylie's dad and had Kylie. That was Joe Ryan is his name. So she married this guy named Joe Ryan. And Colby talks about how, first Lori, like during that period, she's in the Mrs. Texas pageant. Then she goes on Wheel of Fortune. Her mom's talking about how she always wanted to be in the spotlight. They have an interview with Joe Ryan's sister, which is the sister, her former sister-in-law, talking about how Lori has always talked about herself as this super spiritual, needing like extra validation that she hears from God himself, right? Like God told me I was going to be on Wheel of Fortune, or whatever, like she had to be extra special. It wasn't just that that's what God wanted. It was God told her specifically. So they're setting up this picture of what Lori is, right? Colby talks about how her husband, Joe Ryan, started out really nice, but then turned out to be an asshole. And turns out he starts physically abusing him and sexual abuse too. Colby talks about. And I thought this was interesting because I remember watching, like, I think it might have been like the first 2020 or something about it. And she had made these allegations. We didn't hear any of this from Colby. We heard about it from a different perspective, from like her perspective and people around her and stuff. And it was all talking about how people just didn't believe her. Like, I know I didn't believe her, but hearing it from Colby, I do believe it.
Well, I mean, you can't believe anything she says, so I don't.
Right, exactly.
I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, so turns out he's, abusive to both the kids and to her. And then we hear about the sexual abuse. Then we have this clip which is I can't remember if it was a podcast clip or just like a recording she had made or somebody had made of her talking to friends in the church. And she's basically saying that finding out that her husband had raped her kids made her want to murder him, but instead she's going to turn to the temple and turn to service of God. We cut to her brother, Alex Cox, who becomes her co-conspirator I guess at some point, doing stand-up comedy, talking about tasing him in the nuts because he was a pedophile. I personally found that funny.
I did too.
You know, that they were trying to say like he's not that funny of a comic. I found that bit. It's like I thought it was going to parade. They gave me probation.
He only got probation, which is cool too.
He's like, turns out it was a felony.
Yeah.
Who knew? So that's where we're at this point in her life. So then we have Lori meets Charles Vallow, and who plays an important role in this story, right? She meets Charles. He joins the church. He converts to Mormonism and joins the church for her. In 2013, they adopt JJ. Now, the relationship of JJ is, so Charles has a sister named Kay. Kay has a son who had a baby that they can't take care of. That baby is JJ. So JJ is Kay's grandson. Now, so Charles is JJ's like great uncle. Is that how that relation works? If Kay and Charles are brother and sister, and it's, I don't know, her grandson. That makes, his great uncle.
A great uncle, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's his great uncle. So because Kay and her husband are older, they want somebody younger to be able to take care of JJ. So Charles and Lori adopt JJ. And JJ is autistic too. Not that plays a role in anything, but just for point of information. So they adopt him. So now they have Cody, who's older at this point, and we have Tylee, and then we have JJ. And Cody is just super, super loves his siblings. It's all good. Everything's happy, right? They like Charles. Life with Charles is good. Everything's good. But then I guess this is at this point is Cody's talking about how, or Colby is talking about how this is when she started to get like really way more into the church. He's calling it like idolatry, and they're replacing pictures in the house of people like with like Jesus and temples and things like that.
Mm-hmm. I think that's when she started, following the podcast too, right? Like,
is that when? Yeah, well, yeah, I think that's when that started, because then she goes to Kauai, and that's when her beliefs start showing more extremism.
Yeah. Technical.
No. Your volume just seems kind of low, and I don't know if it's on my end or your end.
How does that sound?
A little bit better.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know if it's like my volume is down or my computer's getting really old. So, anyway, yeah. So then they talk about how at this point they are moved to Hawaii. They moved to the island of Kauai because God told her to, of course. Now I personally I've lived in Hawaii, and God told me to move there too. So did the military.
I'm waiting for that message because
I know, right?
Send me, God, to Hawaii.
I want to go back. So they moved to Kauai, which is a gorgeous, gorgeous island. And we talked to a woman named April, who was Lori's friend in Hawaii. And she identifies herself. She had recently moved there. She met Lori through the church, through the LDS church. And so they started, becoming friends. But she said April was saying Lori's views at this point sort of started getting more and more extreme. Saying that she was talking to an angel, like the angel Morona, which I don't know Mormon doctrine, but I think that's an angel within Mormon doctrine.
Angel.
I don't know. In any case, that's what she's saying. So she's getting these messages from Morona. Then they move back to Arizona. Colby talks about how that's where he met his wife, Kelsey. He ends up ultimately like staying there in Arizona. He'd known Kelsey his whole, I guess they'd known each other all through school. And then it was in college that they started dating. And then they got married. And I guess Kelsey took him to a Christian church rather than a LDS church. And Lori started doing, I guess, that typical mother-in-law thing where she's really protective and controlling over her kid. And like the wife is trying to take the son away from the mom and all that kind of stuff. So Lori felt she was taken away from the LDS. Kelsey said that she was always competing with her and trying to control her. Kelsey starts talking here about how bizarre Lori was acting and so my personal, let's talk about Kelsey for a minute here. I think she was really instrumental in helping to bring all of this to light, right? So yeah, so Kelsey and Colby are doing their thing. They start talking about how when they got married, it was really weird that Tylee wasn't there.
Yeah.
Tylee apparently was on a ski trip during the wedding.
Yeah. Nobody told them that.
Nobody told anybody. What the hell? Why would you do that? Why Kylie would want to be there based on it seemed like her relationship with Colby.
Yeah.
Why would you? Weird. Why? That's just super bizarre and weird. But I mean, I've heard some crazy mother-in-law stories. I mean, I watch My Big Fat American Gypsy Wedding.
Okay, I've seen a couple episodes of that.
Those people talk about some fucking crazy mothers-in-law.
We could always make a trip to West Virginia. That's not that far.
It's not even that far from you, Montgomery County.
Well, I'm in Anne Arundel, but
yeah. Well, yeah, but you work you partially work in Montgomery County?
Yep.
Yeah, up near there, and definitely Morgantown, West Virginia. I think they're out there, but there's also Frederick, near Frederick, Maryland.
Yep.
There's a whole community. We should go up there and have lunch one day.
We should. Go to Harper's Ferry while we're at it.
Why not? Let's go further into West Virginia and find the wild and wonderful whites of West Virginia. Yeah. You've seen that documentary, right?
I have.
Oh my God. I think we covered that on our Patreon years ago.
Oh, did you?
Oh my God. Anyway, back to crazy. So the wedding. Okay, so they're talking about that. Then they flash to the former sister-in-law again, talking about how Lori at this point was becoming a doomsday prepper, end times obsessed, literally buying all the things for the bunker, right? Yeah. Now, please, okay, are you a doomsday prepper?
No.
Okay.
No, I will die. I have nothing. I don't know how to start a fire. I don't know how to do anything. Yeah. If doomsday were to come, I know how to shoot a gun.
You have guns?
I don't have a gun. That's a problem.
I know how to shoot one, but I don't own any.
Yeah. Oh, and also at the wedding, Kelsey was talking about real quick. She was like, Lori told me that Jesus loved me, but that he loved her more. I just that was crazy. Sorry.
That I think though is so it's so telling of all of that, right? It shows the jealousy of the mother-in-law about the girl taking my son away, but it's also the thing that the mother-in-law or the sister-in-law was talking about how she always had to be one up you in God, right?
Right.
This is when she starts going off the crazy train on the doomsday prepper stuff, but she's not completely over it yet. Not yet over that cliff. But she's talking about how the end times is coming and it's going to be so scary, and it might be that it's going to be so scary that it might be easier to just drive off a cliff now.
Yep.
That's what she said.
In the car. Yeah. With everyone in the car. Yep.
Yeah. This is what Lori says to the sister-in-law. Sister-in-law is like, the fuck? Now, I don't know a lot about religious doctrine. I'm very spiritual, but I'm not at all religious. So I don't know a lot of theology and, and all that stuff. But this doomsday, this end of times, and then the second coming of Jesus, like, I can't pretend that I understand and know all of that and what that story is supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
But they talk about this, like, end times is supposed to be like this date in July of 2020. And every couple of years you get another doomsday group talking about this, right? Like, everybody's saying next week's going to be the end of times. It's going to be the end of times. And then you have to be, what is it? Like, you have to be righteous and you will be, I don't know if this is where they start talking about the 144,000. I think that might be later.
I think it's later.
Okay.
That will rebuild the world.
But I learned about that from listening to these and watching these stories, right? It's like they explained the quote unquote religious culty belief systems of these people. So yeah, I don't know necessarily like what, but so she's prepping for this end times. Jesus is gonna come. She's obviously gonna survive it because she's just super special, God's favorite child or whatever.
Us all. Yep.
And then I guess Alex joins her brother Alex joins her, and they go off like the deep end together. They have this really bizarre relationship with each other.
Yeah.
You know what it reminded me of? And this is maybe a reference that like makes no sense to anybody else, but if anybody read like the other Boleyn girl,
I'm not.
Or any of those stories, there was a movie made about it and stuff, but like Anne Boleyn, who was married to King Henry the whatever, eighth or whatever he was, before her, the king slept with her sister, like, and she had a baby, but she had it out of wedlock. So there was this whole like the king wouldn't recognize the kid because he's not a real heir, blah 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 blah. But Anne Boleyn was very social climbing, wanted to be, her whole family was trying to push her and trying to make her to marry the king. They had a brother who had this weird ass relationship with Anne Boleyn that was very similar to this. And if any of you guys know what the fuck I'm talking about, please comment about how, and then like Anne Boleyn couldn't get pregnant. Anne Boleyn, when she was married to King Henry, couldn't get pregnant. And then
she came back that disease, or that like he was born.
She suddenly appeared pregnant, but then when she had the baby had like massive birth defects. And the suspicion is that it was actually fathered by the brother, and that's why.
Oh,
yeah. That might be a conspiracy theory. I don't know. I don't follow the Tudors that like, I'm not that into them. I don't know enough about it to know if it's like a out there conspiracy theory or if that, I don't know, but that's what this reminds me of. So this relationship with Alex and Lori reminds me of Anne Boleyn's relationship with her brother.
Yeah. And she was so manipulative that God knows what she said or did to make him be like her right-hand man. I mean, he was there to protect her through everything, literally killing for her. I mean,
yeah,
insane.
Tasing people. I mean, it was so bizarre. Now we have people who follow the Fraudcast and stuff and who listen or on the Frauded Media, Instagram and stuff, who live in this area.
I did see a comment. Yeah, I saw.
And I had a couple people message me that they live in the area, and I also commented publicly and stuff. But if you live in that area, I'm super interested in hearing local reaction to it, because you guys have known this story for a lot longer than the rest of us had. It only came to like this national news story after the welfare check in November of 2019. Which we'll get to. We haven't gotten to that yet, but I would, and everything that's going around like this little town of Rexburg, but from what you guys have said so far, it's really fucking bizarre. But like everything that came out on that I hadn't seen yet about this story, the messages that I got were like, yeah, no, you guys have known that stuff for a long time, a lot of those details. So I would love to hear more about that. Maybe also jump in on the Facebook group, which is very quietly been reactivated. Well, it's a new one. It's a new Facebook group for the Fraudcast. We used to have one for the Patreon, and that got shut down years ago, but I slowly, quietly am making a new one. So I'll link it down below if you want to go talk about it over there. Anyway, so this is where the podcast group comes into play. Now, did you understand what it meant? Like, were they all listening to podcasts together, or are they just creating podcasts? Like, what do you know what they meant by podcast?
No, and I haven't looked it up because I'm too scared to see what I find if I look up the podcast that they did. So I'm not sure who they were doing it for. I'm assuming everyone. I don't know if it was on a big platform or not. I have no idea.
Yeah, so this podcast group is what they refer to it. And this is where they meet this woman named Melanie Gipp, who comes into play later, who actually went to the cops later. And that's kind of part of why we have this on national attention, is because she actually stepped in and did something. But can we talk about the creepy podcast voices?
It made me scared to even do any more podcasts with you. I don't want to. Oh my God, if I sound like that.
Why? Because you wanted to talk about the end times are coming. And this is I can't even do it. I can't even imitate it.
And you know what's scary? I feel like Chad Daybel's voice is literally demonic. It's so quiet and like
so quiet and creepy.
It is. I actually have goosebumps right now. Literally, I said his name. I'm getting goosebumps.
Oh my God. I can't even imitate it. Right?
No, it's scary. It's very scary. But yeah, the whole thing is absolutely creepy. I mean,
not just what they're talking about. I mean, it's like their voices, it's what they're talking about. Like this is where, okay, Doomsday Preppers, like it's batshit, but there's TV shows about that. Like that's not completely out there.
Listen, I have a friend, he's got a whole basement. He's got a gun case. He has food just like them, but he's not like one of those that's like, the Lord is coming to kill us, or blah, 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 blah. I mean, he's just ready in case something happens.
In case you have to go bunker down for months.
Who knows? Right. Yeah, but he's not, constantly living in this fear of like the end of the world type situation. It's just like, well, shit could happen and I'm going to be prepared if it does. But it's not like a fear every day of like, I have to do this, or else I'm going to, not make it. But yeah, I think there's like a very wide range of preppers. There's from some stocking up to absolutely batshit crazy.
Yeah. And like the reason why they're stocking up, you know, and so like at this point, this is where this podcast stuff, that's where I think shit just kind of like starts to really like, cause this is where they're talking about the end times and about like, the podcast talk about, the righteous and this and that. She meets, let's see what it says. So Colby talks about how he and Tylee were talking about how weird mom is. Her mom mentions the comment that they noticed that she was being kind to some odd ducks, is how she referred to him when she's talking about like this Zuelma woman and everything. Like they're all cuckoo, but like, okay, everyone's just kind of like, whatever. But then like Colby was excited, right? Like Zuelma's weird, but mom's got friends. So, it's good, right? So this is when Lori starts going to conferences about the end of times. That's when it gets serious, right? Yeah. Like when you get serious about a topic is when you start going to conferences about it.
Yep.
And so it's all about like end times and the people are prepping for that, whatever, blah, 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 blah. And that's where she meets Chad and all his books. Here comes Chad and his weird affect. So not just on the podcast, but just talking in general. His affect is so weird.
Mm-hmm.
Like that. It's just like he strikes me as this guy who's very beta male. Another one, like we were talking about Cody, right? Of Sister Wives. I feel like he's kind of beta male. And this is a way, this whole thing that he comes up with about his near-death experience and seeing beyond the veil and all the other crap that we're about to talk about. Like, I feel like it's his way of like puffing himself up and being like,
oh yeah,
big man. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And obviously he's good at, well, I don't think he's good at talking necessarily, but to some people, he's a smooth talker, manipulative. I mean, like his one friend said that growing up, he was like the top #1 Mormon recruiter, I guess you could say.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You know? So he had a way of bringing people in. And I feel like, again, I didn't study religion. I studied psychology and Spanish in undergrad, but I will say that like these people have a way of, you know, manipulating and taking control. And it's like, I think that like evil shows up. Well, like how do I say this? They always say in different religions, like evil presents itself as being good. And I feel like he's the master manipulator that, oh, like he's in the church, he's doing this, he's wanting everybody to be prepared. He's a smooth talker. He's like the example of like a pure evil soul that's like coming for everyone. I don't know.
Yeah, like so they oh, it's so weird. So with Chad, now that we're introducing Chad to the picture, right? So we've gotten Lori chronologically to this point. So now we get Chad, and they're saying this like person who's like a forensic psychologist talking about Chad, and he's like, to understand Chad, you have to like go back years. And they show some interview with some friends. One who's this guy, Ben, who served his mission with him, his 2-year mission. And that's what you're talking about. Really good, really, you know, like he had great conversions, like number, I guess, you know, you're judged by God. God doesn't judge you, but he judges the number of people you can convert to Mormonism. I don't know.
Yeah, I have no idea.
But they said he got a lot. And he was really like, just, you know, in that kind of charismatic way, which is so funny to me because you look at him, there's no charisma about him at all.
Not that we see, but we already know what he's like. I'm curious to see, like, if you were to just meet him, like, no idea who he was. Maybe he knocked at your door. Knock, knock. It's the LDS church. There he is. I don't know. What would he say?
Knock, knock. God here.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, you know, because we already know like what he is, but it would just be really interesting to see how he did it. I mean, how did he do it? He got people to listen to him.
Yeah.
So
he has to believe his own hype. I'd really be interested in a psychological, like look on how this happened with these people, because I think, and we can talk about more about this, but like, I really feel that like Lori actually believes this stuff.
Oh, 100%. I don't think she's not able to decipher between fantasy and reality. Like she is.
Yeah. And she actually is found not competent for a period of time.
Right.
And I want to talk more about all that stuff, the psychological aspect. But do you think Chad really believes this?
That is a great question. And I feel like we got so much information on Lori's side. We've gotten her family to talk. So we kind of know more a lot. We know a lot more about her. I feel like we didn't necessarily, at least in this documentary, get a lot about him. We got, you know, a little bit, but I truly believe that he knows what's right and wrong. I think he literally is demonic and he knows what he's doing and he is a mastermind. And I think he found prey. Like, I think Lori was beautiful and she was easily manipulated, and I think that he took control of her in a weird sense of however he did it. But I do think he did know what was going on. That's my opinion.
Okay, so that's interesting. Because I don't know about him. So they talk about how Chad is cliff diving, bonks his head or something, has this near-death experience. And it's at that point that he claims that he can now see beyond the veil.
Was that validated, by the way? The cliff, like the accident itself?
I don't know, but I imagine like they wouldn't have put it in there.
Right. Okay.
You know, I
was just curious if he made up the story. I had a near-death experience and, you know, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. Where did that come from? Like I imagine because the way that they put it seemed like they had confirmed that information that actually occurred. Yeah. You know, that the accident itself happened. So he, whatever, has this near-death experience, whatever it is, cliff diving. And that's when excuse me. God, It's Dr. Pepper making.
Yeah, I was gonna say Dr.
There's that Dr. Pepper. Sorry, guys. And that he's now a prophet is what he's saying. Okay. Also, they talk at this point about how he had met Tammy, his wife Tammy, shortly after he returned from his mission, and they got married and had past little kids, which is, Mormon lifestyle timeline 101, right? You go on your mission, you marry, you have babies, right? So they have a bunch of kids. The friends are saying that like she's the more lively of the one, and that he basically married the first woman like that he dated, which is kind of what they do, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, from what I
They
understand,
don't have sex until they're married, and so they're gonna get married.
Yeah, and they get married real young, and you know, it's always like the girls go to, they talk about BYU to get their MRS degree, and they meet a recently returned missionary after, or whatever, and then they go get married and have a bunch of kids. Like that's what they do. No judgment, whatever. That's what they do. So that's what he was doing. He's a good husband. He's a good father. And then he starts writing his books and speaking at conferences. And then he starts his own publishing company, probably because the shit he's writing is completely batshit and nobody else would publish it.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the books that he authored. Have we?
Have you read any of the books?
I have not read the books.
I haven't either. I don't want to support it by buying it. Not that I don't know.
God, no.
But I am interested to see what craziness he has to say to a degree. It's like, I don't want to know, but I do want to know.
Okay. I'm going to tell you the names of the books that he wrote. Well, I had to sort through here because ones that he wrote versus ones he's mentioned in. But he's talking about, like, these are Living on the Edge of Heaven. It's the title, 2017. In 2015, he'd written Days of Fury. He wrote one, Evading Babylon. He wrote The Great Gathering, One Foot in the Grave, The Rise of Zion, Reclaiming Liberty, Marital Law, Doug's Dilemma. Now, these are
Doug's Dilemma,
the Emma trilogy. Takes a Trip Through Time as a Missionary. Oh, it's a fiction book.
Okay, I was going to say that has to be. Well, no, with this story, anything is possible. So.
Right. Yeah, no. So apparently he wrote a set of some fiction books about Mormon fiction and life and missionary in the 1860s.
Oh.
In case that's your jam. So yeah, he writes all these books about doomsday prepping. What we find out is, he's basically trying to create his own religion here. Mm-hmm. Then we're introduced to this woman, Julie Rowe, who is
your favorite person on the show. I already know this.
Oh my God, this woman, Julie. She is this woman who they list her as a former friend of Chad Daybel's. She is an LDS woman who has, what do they call him? Prophetic ability.
Yeah. Something like that.
Which she's speaking out on because women aren't supposed to have that, much less speak out about.
Yeah.
But she works for the light, and Chad Daybel works for the dark.
Yes.
So at one point she said something about how they probably, these people probably thought Chad was out there, as if she were not.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, I love her. She 100% believes her own stuff. She says all the stuff without a hint of irony, without a hint of anything. Like she 100% lock stock believes this stuff, right? Mm-hmm. So she's talking about past lives, which I actually agree with.
I do too.
Everybody's had a past life. There are sometimes people who have not had a previous mortal life, but most of us have had multiple, many of them. I absolutely 100% agree with that. She also says that she believes that we're at the end times. Clarification, I do not believe that.
Yeah, I don't either.
And Chad published her first 5 books. Yeah. Y'all, there's lots of people writing lots of books about this end times.
Yeah. I mean, what better way to like control the people is to make them believe that there's an end time coming up, right? Like, how do you control a group of people? Well, there's this end time coming up. We all got to do this, and this. You better listen to me. Follow me
because he's
in Idaho.
And this is what he does, right? Is he basically says he's the only one who can get this information. So they got to listen to him to get this information, right? So this is where they start talking about the 144,000, right? Which is not something that they created. That's comes from whatever doctrine somewhere. But so this girl Julie's talking about how Chad had this weird ranking system where he could quote unquote like rank people according to the number of past lives they've had. Like he can see that. He's like, that's one of his gifts, is that he's saying he can see that. I don't believe that he can do that. I don't believe anybody can necessarily do that. And I can't, like, even somebody with great gifts, I don't think can, like, great spiritual gifts can look at you and say, oh, you've had 16 past lives. No, like, I don't think it works that way, but whatever. She says it's wrong because God doesn't rank people. That's why she thinks it's wrong. Not that he can't see it, but that it's because God doesn't do that. Which is just,
I think she did mention that I think she did mention something about he can't rank people, like only God can. I don't know.
So they talk about how there's going to be this apocalypse and only 144,000 righteous souls will be the ones saved and carry on the work of God into eternity. This is the belief of the 144,000. And that after the apocalypse, that Rexburg, Idaho is going to be the new spiritual capital, the new Jerusalem.
Yep.
And he's going to lead all these people in this church for the firstborns, is what this Julie woman calls it. And that Julie's like, no, that's wrong because only Jesus does that, not him. He thinks he's like whatever, but no, I guess they didn't
tell people he was Jesus, to be honest. I mean, he's so crazy. I'm actually
he kind of did, but you're right. I don't know if I would be interested in seeing more communications and more things from his side, like his children, his sons, or no, that was Chad's children. Yes. No, I was thinking Charles Vallow's sons, although that's a separate story that I would love to hear. Because we haven't even gotten to Charles dying yet. So this is the belief system that he and Lori meet, right? And they're texting each other and they're like, oh, we've met before. We've had past lives before. Oh, I've known. They're showing some text between the two. Yeah. And one of them is like, Chad to Lori saying, I feel like I've known you oh so long. Oh so long. I quote, what the fuck is that? Who writes like that?
I don't know. I think they both like.
Can you picture that in his creepy monotone affect podcast voice?
No. Yes, I can. And it's awful.
I feel like I've known you oh so long.
Yeah. It's gross.
Yeah. Yeah. So, basically at this point, so they're trying to, like, they're putting out the idea here that, Chad believed he's going to lead this church and that his writings should be taken as scripture, basically trying to create this new religion on the back of Mormonism is how they describe it. Okay. And this is what I'm talking about. Do you think he really believes this stuff? Or do you you said you felt he's demonic. He knows right from wrong and he's doing this to like whatever. But do you think it's because he really believes that the end times are coming and that he's going to lead this church?
No, I think he really is just trying to do what he's trying to do, be destructive and all powerful. That's my opinion. I think he's out to kill people and to like be an evil demon on earth. I know it sounds crazy to some people.
No, you know what? That actually makes the most sense to me, the most rational sense than either 100% believing that he's going to lead this afterlife thing or whatever. After apocalypse life, I don't know.
It's so hard to, because like, especially with studying psychology, I mean, I do have like the scientific belief that yes, there are mental illnesses, 100%.
Oh yeah.
But then, it's like, I do believe in possession. I do believe in demonic entities. And so where do you draw the line between mental health and spiritualism, religion, demons? I don't know. It's like a very sometimes thin line, I feel like.
Well, with that explanation, so that kind of makes sense that like he's kind of like this demonic spirit. Like he doesn't necessarily believe that he's going to go run this church. He's just came up with this idea as a means of being able to control, like you said, control Lori, control these, kill all these people, mastermind killing all these people or whatever because they're demons, and we'll get to that. Because again, we still haven't murdered Charles yet. We're about to get there. And then and with her, possibly there's a little twist of mental illness in there that he was able to exploit with his thing.
Yeah. And it's like a part of me says like she's evil, and maybe she is.
She is
100%. But I do think that she was easily manipulated.
Yeah.
And I do believe that she truly believed in what she did, and you could hear it in those conversations she had with her son Colby on the phone. You know, when he's like, I guess we're going to get to that too, but like, what happened? Well, you just don't understand. Like, what?
Yeah. And she's like, I promise you one day you'll understand.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that to me is like really believing what you did.
Yeah.
I mean,
and why you did it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is mom comes on, basically says, okay, Lori changed when she met Chad. So now we're intersecting. So we've raised Lori up to this point. We've gotten Chad up to this point. Now they meet each other and we have more creepy podcast voices of them talking. Lori's friend from Hawaii says that Lori had told her that Charles was dead and being occupied by a demon named Ned, whatever. Apparently used a different name with other people, but that the demon needed to die.
Yes.
So this is where we start talking about demons.
Yeah.
Or zombies or whatever, all of the things that she ends up talking about. We have Colby then talking about how Lori tells Colby that she found out Charles had been cheating on her for years. Colby talks to Charles, and Charles is like running around talking about how crazy Lori is and that she thinks everybody's demons. And, he's recounting all of the crazy things that she's thinking and saying, but nobody believes him. Right.
He's like, I never cheated on her. Yada, yada. She's making stuff up. She's crazy.
Colby is like, shut the fuck up, deal with your own drama. He viewed it as that's just the way a guilty person was acting. He got caught and he's acting guilty and he's trying to do whatever he can to make Lori look bad so that he can win. So he's like emailing all the full family and all this stuff. And Colby's like, get the fuck out. I don't care. That's your drama. I don't want to deal with your shit. Figure it out. Charles also says that Lori thought she was some kind of superior being. He goes on a business trip, and while he's gone, like he goes to Texas on a trip, and then while he's gone, she packs all his stuff up, parks his car like at the airport, all this stuff. He comes back, he drives to her house, calls the police, which is where the body cam footage from the very beginning. This is where we're intersecting with that. So he's calling the police because kids aren't there. He's trying to tell the cops that he's afraid for the kids. He's afraid for his own life. He doesn't know what Lori's going to do. She has said that he's a demon named Ned and that she's going to kill him and da da da. By the way, all of this is 100% true. She has said all of these things and all of it 100% actually happens.
Yep.
But at this point, the cops don't believe a word he's saying. They think he's crazier than she is, right? Because like, what are you going to do? And then there was an incident the following day where they're at the school. Like Charles goes to the school to meet JJ there, or I don't know. I don't know this. I couldn't figure out the specific details, but he
wanted to see his kids, I think, and he knew that she would be dropping them off at school.
Yeah,
so he went there to see his kids.
And then he somehow takes her purse.
He reaches in the car and grabs her keys and purse, I guess, out of the car.
And he's also talking to the cops about how he had gotten committal paperwork for her, meaning like a 72-hour, check the welfare, for crazy train type of thing. So the cops bring her in. Basically, she's in being interviewed by the police. She's got Tylee there with her, so this isn't any kind of proper interview. But they're talking to her about what happened, and they're completely 100% captivated by her, and obviously believe her, not him. And they're saying, look, he was able to get this committal paperwork based on whatever he said to them. we're not going to come like chasing you down, but if you're there, we're going to take you in. You might want to just do it yourself. Go get an evaluation. If somebody is legit crazy and they need to be committed or evaluated, like, let them be evaluated. They're clearly sidestepping this. I want to know what happened in the police review of this.
I can't wait to see when it goes to trial. I can't wait to see the actual evidence, because it's going to be fascinating to see what reports were written, what was said. Yeah, it'll be very interesting. She's a master manipulator. That's where it's like, but she's also sick, and it's like narcissists and certain people are so good at lying and so good at manipulation.
They find the right people.
Yeah,
and they did here. And because a friend of mine referred to this story as another example of pretty white women getting away with shit.
Yeah.
And it's 100% true. Absolutely 100%
She's like
true.
middle class, white woman, suburban, ex beauty queen or whatever.
Bats her eyelashes, like, oh my God, yeah, my ex-husband, he's cheating. He's saying all kinds of crazy things.
She was so poised and so just, and her responses, they were just, look, oh my goodness, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, oh my God, really?
I know. And it just kept going on and on and on. And oh my God.
Well, and like the other I don't remember who said it, but they were just like, this woman moved his car and took everything out of the house and got rid of his stuff. I don't know what happened to the stuff. Did he get it back? What happened to the laptop and the clothes? And I mean, that's a red flag. Like, even if you're in a divorce or a breakup or whatever, you don't just completely get rid of the other person's stuff. A laptop. It was
like Christine packing up Cody's boxes and putting them in the garage.
But she packed them up and left them for Cody. It's like, I think, and you don't just throw them away or sell them or whatever the hell she did with his stuff.
Well, okay. And then, so this whole thing. So, okay, let's get to him Charles being murdered. Okay. So she goes and gets this psych eval and she's fine. So everyone's just like, whatever. Charles is just batshit crazy, right? Then we bring Adam into the picture. Adam is the other brother of Alex and Lori. Charles and Adam get along. So Adam doesn't buy into whatever Lori and Alex are doing. So Adam believes Charles. He's like the only person in the family that believes Charles. So they're talk about how they found this email that Lori had sent under Charles's name to Chad. And it's talking about Charles's time as like a minor league baseball player. You should interview him. That's going to be great in Arizona or whatever. What it was Lori sending this email under Charles's name to Chad so that it would provide cover to Tammy, Chad's wife, giving Chad a reason to come to Arizona and see Lori. Talk about like she's trying to cover her tracks, right?
Right.
So Charles found this and he's like, I'm going to go talk to Tammy. But then he tells Lori that he's going to talk to Tammy and he knows all this stuff. And I think that's where his fatal mistake was.
Yes. Well, when you're in love and you're not thinking clearly.
Yeah.
I would say when you're young, he's not young, but yeah.
But because she's now aware that he's aware and he's going to go blow all this stuff up, that I think is what sets into action all of the events that lead to Charles being killed.
Yeah.
So Adam goes to help stage the family intervention. They show texts between Lori and Alex talking about the need to kill Ned/Charles. Ned, the demon version of Charles.
Right. Because Charles is no longer here. It's the demon now.
Yes. So that's how they justify this, right? So Charles has been replaced by this person named Ned, who's a demon or a zombie, and that person can be killed so we can set Charles free. And they can go on to the 144,000 Church of the Newborns, post-apocalyptic Rexburg, Idaho. I don't know. Then we go to the scene where Charles is actually murdered. Now, the way this all goes down, story is told to us with police body cam footage, as well as some interviews with some of the people that are involved. So basically what happens is she's at home. She had just moved to the area or whatever. Lori is. And Alex is there. She had asked Alex to come over. The story she gives the police is that she'd asked Alex to be there because she was afraid Charles was going to come over and be mean, which is apparently exactly what happened. According to the story Lori gives to the police, is that Charles came over. They got in a fight. Tylee came out with a bat to protect her mom. Something happened where Charles took the bat from her and she ran back into another room. Alex comes out of his room with a gun, shoots Charles in the head after Charles allegedly hits Alex in the back of the head with a baseball bat.
Correct.
That's the story that Lori gives. And that after the shooting happened, she took the kids to Burger King and then JJ to school and then to the Walmart to buy flip-flops for her and Tylee before returning back to talk to the police about the fact that her brother just shot her husband.
Yep.
Because that's what I do. As I go to Burger King and Walmart after my husband is shot.
It's absolutely. And there's no history of physical abuse from Charles. None.
Mm-mm.
So that's a red flag, obviously. Do I think he was probably heated and was yelling? Of course. Do I think he ever touched anyone? Probably not. And I think it was set up 100%.
Yeah.
So who hit him in the head? Do you think?
I think he hit himself.
I think did Lori do it or did he hit himself?
I'm thinking he hit himself.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he had Lori hit him. I don't know, but he did something so that he could get the mark on the back of his head. So because when he calls the cops, and I'm always like, I listen to enough and watch enough true crime that when someone calls and says, I shot him in self-defense on the 911 call, they're already setting up their defense, right? So he calls 911, tells 911 that he shot his brother in self-defense, his brother-in-law and whatever, just in self-defense.
Which the tone of it was very creepy. It sounded almost like the podcast tone.
Mm-hmm.
I shot him in self-defense. Okay, there is no emotion to that. Like if you shot somebody, wouldn't you be, no matter if it was your enemy or not, you would be you'd be full of emotions.
Complete emotion.
Yes.
List affect. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like if the scenario that they paint to the police like was the actual scenario, there would be a lot more adrenaline. I mean, there would have to be, right? A lot more adrenaline, a lot more of that going on. And he's just sitting there, chill. Lori's laughing after having gone to Burger King and getting, her and Tylee, who's 17 at that point, whatever. So they come back.
Smug look on her face, just smug,
laughing. Yeah. So at this point, okay. So then we move on. We're introduced to this reporter from Arizona. His name is Justin Lum, and he's awesome. And he takes an interest in this story, the shooting and stuff, because he's like, something's just not right about it. And he was saying how they're like the only local media to take any attention, take any interest in this story. He's like, something just wasn't right about it. He's like, I had no idea how, what it would turn into, but I knew something wasn't right about the situation.
Yeah.
So he starts digging into this case as well. And he tells a really great version of like all of the stuff that happens to come. So then, yeah, like, the story about how like Charles put JJ in the car to take him to school, came back in to get his phone. She had quote unquote found something on his phone.
Yeah.
Was that supposed to like be in addition to what she had already allegedly found about him cheating? I don't know. But she uses that as the quote unquote like catalyst for this fight that results in Alex shooting Charles. So then Lori tells Colby that Charles is dead. And Colby and Kelsey, his wife Kelsey, are like, something doesn't sound right about this, right? And Kelsey kind of takes an interest in this at this point too. Colby comes in back at the murder scene. Colby talks about Charles being his only real father figure, and that how could she have lied about this? Because Lori originally says that like there was a heart attack, and then says Lori sends a text.
The Charles's kids. your dad is dead and then ghosts them and doesn't
And ghosts them for hours.
what kind of monster?
I know, of all the things that she does in this thing, some reason this particular thing, maybe it's because it's the first time we're really hearing about Charles's sons and this whole other part of these lives that have been ruined by Lori and Chad. But I don't know, there was something about that of all the horrible things that she's done, that to me was particularly egregious.
And I mean, she's not a smart criminal either, because if you were actually smart, you wouldn't be texting. I mean, you would show more emotion. She's like a sociopath. Like, she has literally no emotions. Like, she doesn't know how to, she's trying to like fit in, right? She's trying to, she has her story planned out, but she's not doing it. She's obviously not doing it 100%.
Right. So she texts the sons that tells them that he died and then ghosts them for hours. They're like, what happened? She's like, oh, she doesn't know. She's waiting on the medical examiner. Right.
Yeah.
And then she tells JJ's school that he had committed suicide. So right now we're at 3 different stories about his death. Like you said, not a smart criminal.
No. But why the police didn't do a thorough investigation and interview everyone? Like, it would have been easy to point that out, right? 3 different stories right there.
Right.
At the beginning of the investigation,
Right.
Like,
I mean, later, obviously, this gets handled, but excuse me. Lori then calls the life insurance place, finds out, like, this is a couple days after the death. And now I don't know what the average time is that's acceptable to call an insurance place, but I'm not, like, a couple days after a death, I'm not judging as a general matter, because whatever. In her case, I'm judging her.
Right.
Lori calls them, finds out, excuse me, that she is no longer the beneficiary of the $1 million policy that he had.
But see, if she was killing him because he was demonic and possessed, what does the life insurance money have anything to do with possession? I feel like it was just an excuse in a way. Like, to me, she had a goal, and that was to collect life insurance as well.
Yeah.
So they can then fund their crazy madness.
Right. I think that's what it was. The money and getting rid of demons were equally important. Yeah. I think we're both the compelling factors there, is what I think. Mm-hmm. Because, later we also find out that Tammy, Chad's wife, had $1 million policy too. And he ends up collecting like $430,000 off of that. And the reporter talks about how, this clear financial motive was happening, but I think if you go with the theory that Lori 100% believed this, hook, line, and sinker, the money isn't as important to her. Like, she wasn't killing him so that she could get money and go live a lavish lifestyle. She was killing him because what? I
think Chad was talking in her ear.
Yeah.
No, this is what we have to do.
Yeah. And she believed that she needed the money, like you said, to fund their next phase of this church or whatever.
God spoke to me and told me that the money, who knows what the hell he said to her, but whatever it was, it worked.
Right. And then because we talk more about how, so-and-so turned, we got bad news. We got bad news about so-and-so. They turned into a zombie. Yeah, about 10 o'clock last night it happened. These oddly specific incidents of where these things happen. What? Because he does this when he's talking about Tammy becoming when they talk about these people becoming demons or zombies, they talk about it like as if it happened in an instant. 10 p.m. last night, they turned into a zombie. We'll have to take care of them. Mm-hmm. Set them free. Like, what happened at 10 p.m. Tuesday? Like, I don't know about you, but I'm watching like Survivor. Like, it's not a prophetic experience. I mean, sometimes watching like 90 Day can be like, soul sucking, but I'm not really losing my soul. Mind numbing. I'm not really losing my soul to a zombie. Mm-hmm. So Lori, so they show some text then with Lori and Chad talking about bringing down Brandon, and we'll get to Brandon. We'll circle back to him because he plays a part. Who's Brandon? he was married to Lori's niece, but they're saying Kay somehow must be responsible for the life insurance thing, right? Kay being Charles's sister, being the one who adopted JJ initially, and that then set in motion the later welfare checks on the kids that went horribly bad at first, but then ultimately led to where we're at now. So yeah, Kay Woodcock. And I always laugh because Woodcock was my previously married name.
Oh,
That
was
was
it?
my last name. Yeah. I was married to a Woodcock family.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I don't think we're related to that. So it's a very common name, apparently. So then Colby's talking about how mom starts acting even weirder at this point, which, okay, already, that she was going to move to Idaho, said goodbye to Tylee, and everybody was a mess. Grandma, Lori's mom talking about, how it was the last time she saw Tylee, and Tylee was a mess. Everybody was a mess, whatever. Then Kelsey, who's Colby's wife, they get pregnant. She has a high risk pregnancy. So they kind of like ignore the family. They're focusing on their own stuff, right? Their own health, their family, their own, whatever. He didn't talk to Tylee that much, mostly texting. He remembers he said he sent a happy birthday text to her and got a weird response from her, from Tylee, that basically it was like all lowercase and it just didn't sound like Tylee. And I think at that point that was what Lori responding, right? Yeah. Colby calls mom, Lori, and he said Lori acted really weird about where Tylee was and what she was doing. Oh, she's just busy. She's got this and that and that and that. And that's why they hadn't actually spoken. Colby then calls out Tylee on her responses to him, like, this doesn't sound like you. Call me. Let's talk. And then all of a sudden her phone gets shut off.
Yeah. Shocker. Right.
Yeah. Now, timeline wise, we know this is after the point where Tylee has been killed. So Kelsey, Colby's wife, starts investigating. She's like, all of this is batshit. This isn't right. So this is where Kelsey gets her hero. It becomes the real hero here. Is she starts investigating. She Googles her. She starts listening to all her podcasts and about how, Lori's fighting this war. She's been fighting this war for millennia, in all of these different lives. And Kelsey started looking then at the emails that Charles had sent before he was murdered. And she hadn't read them before because she was just thought it was a part of their family drama, like whatever. She didn't want anything to do with it. But now she starts reading it and she's like, oh shit. Yeah. Like, what is happening? And then she finds this email that has a list of all these people that they know. And it's like the good spirit, bad spirit list. It's like the Jack Skellington Halloween Town version of Santa's Christmas list. I don't know, like who's naughty and who's nice. Yeah. Here's the good spirit and here's the bad spirits. But they talk about dark spirits and light spirits. And then they had like a number system, like -4 or -1 or whatever. Right. Yeah. And he said that all the people who were listed as dark spirits were all people that didn't, quote, love and adore Lori.
Which is shocking because Tylee seemed like she was all in awe of her mother, right? She did everything for her mother and for the family. It sounded like she was just a pure good soul, which makes me, if you look at like good and evil, right? Evil wants to take out the good, right? So it would make sense that she would want, I guess, or mark her as being like a dark entity because she was so pure. That's my opinion.
I believe it. I'm with you on that.
And then she gave her son Colby he was in the good spirit, which that was her baby boy. That was her firstborn. It's just interesting. It was just very interesting. I don't know. And it was just so sad to see such a pure soul be marked like something so
Tylee and JJ, absolutely pure souls. Absolutely. So then they go to Chad and Lori talking about killing zombies, dark spirits, etc. That somehow part of his belief system is that you have to kill the zombies to realize his vision. And only Chad knows who the zombies are. So you have to listen to this like great big man on high, right? Then they go back to Brandon. Now, It was like, who you need a spreadsheet or you need like a flow sheet with all of the red strings. That's what I feel like right now. The guy with the red strings with the keeping the family, understanding who all these people are. So there's this guy named Brandon Boudreaux, who was married to Lori's niece, Melanie, who's not Melanie Gibbs, different Melanie. Brandon is getting divorced from Melanie. Now, Melanie was following Lori and Chad in this group, this podcast group. So she was in that line, right? Brandon, they're getting divorced. Brandon gets his window shot out of a car by Alex, who was driving Charles's car, but it's dead Charles's car because Charles has died at this point. So Alex is driving dead Charles's car, goes to shoot out Brandon's window.
Make it make sense. Like, what? How stupid are you?
Make it make sense. Like, that is like.
Listen, I'm not a criminal. I don't have a criminal mind, but I'm also not stupid. Like, I feel like that was just dumb. I don't know.
What was the point of it? Were they trying to shoot him or were they trying to scare him?
I think they were trying to shoot him 100%. Why would you like scare somebody? I think that he just was a terrible shot. I guess he's just not a good.
Yeah, I wonder. I mean, because so flashback to the first time they started talking about bringing down Brandon, right? This was the text between Lori and Chad right after she finds out about the life insurance. They're talking about having to bring down Brandon, and this is that Brandon that they're talking about. So, he's a zombie. They need to kill him.
Yeah.
Then we go to the crazy prophetess lady, Julie. I love her. Who says that she's pretty sure that Lucifer told Chad he would run the church of the firstborn, which is not right because, Jesus. And that last time that she said, obviously I don't have proof of this, but this is what I believe because I'm a light worker and I hear this and that, whatever. And she said that the last time that she talked to Chad and she'd asked him about Tammy, that he went into this like trance-like state, told her about a vision of Tammy going off the road and that he saw her spirit leave her body.
Yeah. Red flag.
Alert.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't doubt that she saw Lucifer talking to him. I mean,
do you think? Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know enough about what she said, what she claimed about herself to know. Does she visually see him? Does she like imagine like what her quote unquote visions are? But I don't know.
When somebody says that they have a vision though of like a death or something to that degree, that's. And the one thing I've learned too about mediumship is that if you see, this is what I've been told by a few different people. If you see something like that, you don't tell people. You're not supposed to tell people that they die or that
that's intrusive.
Exactly. And you don't want to. So for him to tell whatever her name is that he saw that vision, that's like a big no-no. You just don't do it.
Yeah. And obviously I don't think he really has mediumship abilities.
No, not at all.
He was just putting that out there to start the, I don't know, to help their process along.
Because,
to help the storyline.
Yeah.
As it were. Then Tammy gets shot at with a paintball gun.
This I don't understand. What?
What?
I don't get the paintball gun thing. That doesn't.
Why would she get that? And this makes me wonder about Brandon's car window or whatever being shot out. Like, obviously, you're not going to kill somebody with a paintball gun. So,
right.
We're trying to scare her? Like, what?
I don't know. Where was she on the list of entities, good or bad spirits?
Tammy?
Yeah. Did they say?
She turns. Remember? She's one of these like at 10 p.m. Tuesday.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Then I have no idea what they were thinking.
Is when she got demonized or whatever. They show, so they then they talk. So they talk about this incident of Tammy getting shot at with a paintball gun. We don't get any more details about that. We're just like, okay, well, something batshit is going on. But then you have this flash of a statement that says that Chad's basically saying, I don't think my plan can move forward until the spouses are dead. That he allegedly said to this girl, Julie.
Yeah.
I'd believe that he said that based on everything else he's been doing, right? Like, I don't know. It's like he half trusted her because she was, in his batshit crazy world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel like he was kind of like feeling her out to see like what she would believe. Like maybe he get her as a co-conspirator to help him kill zombies. I don't know, but I feel like he would have said that to her.
Yeah.
Then they show some text between Chad and Lori talking. Great news! Tammy's in limbo, and I'm going to try to hasten her departure. Yay! Great news!
Oh
What
my.
they mean by this is that she's dead.
That's crazy.
She gets sick and dies. Originally, now I remember hearing this on another one of the shows or podcasts or something, is originally they thought it was like some kidney disease. She got some disease, she got sick and she got like kidney infection and something like that, and she ended up dying from it. So there was this period of time where she got sick and then she died. Later they go and exhume her body and all this stuff, and they figure out that that's not actually the case, or she was poisoned, because he actually gets indicted on her death.
Yes.
For her murder later. So there's obviously there's more about that they didn't go into in this, but there is a period of time. So this him talking about her being in limbo, that's what I think about, is from when she got sick. I suspect, I don't know, he poisoned her or something based on what I remember. Like that would have been the assumption, and he was waiting for, because it was something that when she initially died, they were like, well, yeah, that's something that can happen, and they didn't look at it more closely initially, but then after all this other stuff. I don't
understand that, because she was young. You would think they would have done a more thorough I mean, I don't know what they do, like what the basic tests they run for an autopsy, but I would assume basic blood work.
Yeah, I don't remember, and it was something on one of the other shows or the podcast that I listened to where they talk about how her death, how it happened and all this stuff. And that, I mean, because then this one talks about how because of information they learn later, they go back and exhume her body and redo, and they figure it out. That based on all this other stuff, that they classify the cause of death as murder, or the manner of death, manner and cause. And all that.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't get any of that in this one, but that's what happened. So he's trying to hasten her departure. So she dies. He gets the $1 million insurance policy. All told, ended up being about $450,000, $430,000, something like that. Then this is all the marriages within the group. Right around in that time frame, we have Alex Cox, the brother, marrying Zuelma.
Very quickly marrying her, right?
Mm-hmm. And then Melanie, the niece, marries this guy, Ian. They all get married within like weeks of meeting each other and within days of each other. They're all witnesses at each other's weddings. And it seems like they said that the timeline of this was because they all said July 2020. The specific date in July was the end of time. So they all were going to get married then, I guess, so they could be sealed through the afterlife, whatever. Okay. And then we go to, so they're all getting married and everyone's like, this is weird. We flash to Kay in November 2019, asking about the kids. And this, so like, this is the point at which like the earlier versions of this, or like the 2020s and all this, the story picks up at this point, right? Because they didn't know all the rest of this stuff at the time. She gets into Charles's email, and she sees, this is Kay, Charles's sister, right? Sees an Amazon order for the wedding rings. These are the wedding rings that Lori orders from Amazon to be delivered to her house in Rexburg under Charles's account. And this was after Charles was dead, but before Tammy had died.
Stupid.
These are the wedding rings that Chad and Lori use when they get married in Kauai.
Yeah. Make it make sense again. Like, this is absolutely stupid. You could have just gone to a store, walked in and paid cash and bought a
Instead,
ring.
let's leave this trail.
Yeah.
Indicating that we're planning on getting married in the middle of all these murders. So after this, she finds this Amazon order with the rings. now they have the shipping address in Rexburg. So with that address, she sends a welfare check. So this welfare check goes oh so smoothly. Now this is another white woman getting away with shit, right? So Alex and Chad are there. Cops show up. They tell the cops that JJ was with, because the cops show up looking for JJ. And they say, "Oh, JJ's with Kay, her grandma." And they're like, "No, Kay's the one that called this in, motherfucker. Like, give us the, Oh, sorry, Kaya. But cops, this Kaya's listening. Mommy, Aunt Cat taught me you gotta say motherfucker. But then the cops are like, okay, whatever. Then the cops talk to Lori. Lori's like, "Oh, JJ's with my friend Melanie Gibbs in Arizona. They're seeing Frozen." Melanie is like, She calls Lori out on this. She calls Lori. She's like, "What? Why are you telling him this? What the fuck? Why are you saying all this stuff? Blah, 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 blah." She then goes to the cops.
Right.
And gets involved. And that's then how like this stuff starts able to finally come together. So she at this point is key in making this, not believing.
Now, did she record the phone call between her and Lori, or did the police record the phone call?
I thought it was a police.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure. Because that's strange. I mean, why would you ever lie and have, say that you were watching a kid, have your friend tell that you're watching, and you're not watching them? That makes no sense.
She's like, "Where is JJ? Why is this? Why are you doing this?" And so I remember from one of the other shows that after that is what prompted Melanie to go to the cops and say, "This is what's happening. I don't understand why she would say this. Where are the kids?"
Right.
And then they launched this missing kids investigation. Mm-hmm. So this is when it becomes a national story. Everybody picks it up. Colby makes a video basically like, "Where are the kids? Mom, I love you, but where are the kids?" At this point, Alex randomly dies of heart disease.
Yeah, which do you think he was murdered? Or
no,
do you think,
I think it was just completely coincidental, random.
I do too, but I wouldn't put it past him to eventually murder him for sure. But I don't think I
don't think he had outlived his usefulness at that point.
Exactly.
Yeah, he was still well into it. He had, you know what I mean? Like, I think it was just bad luck on everybody's part, on Lori's part. I mean, this sounds really bad. It's good luck that he died. No, like, I'm not saying it's good that Alex died. It's not ever good to have a person die. But if anybody's going to die in this story, like, he killed other people. Like, I ain't going to be sad about it. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I think it was just unfortunate timing for Lori. I don't think it was planned. All of these other murders, but then there's other random deaths. You're like, the fuck? The guy who's the assassin, the enforcer, takes out all the zombie zombie killer. He dies randomly of a heart disease. Colby at this point then learns like that he had moved to Idaho and that he had gotten married. And then he also learned that Lori and Chad had gotten married in Kauai, which was their special place. And they had shown those videos of them in Kauai. And I'm like, oh.
Super weird that she would use that place. I don't know. It's just whole thing crazy.
Yeah. So then Lori and Chad disappear in December of 2019. They get married, they disappear, the kids are declared missing. After that, in January, a search warrant is served at Chad's house regarding Tammy's death. So at some point during there was enough evidence and they had gotten enough from all of this that Tammy's death was suspicious. So they get a search warrant and they ultimately exhume her body and ultimately indict him on murder charges for her death. The Lori and Chad are found, they're tracked down in Hawaii and they have to come back to Idaho to face charges. They say, bring the kids by Thursday or else, of course they show up, they don't have the kids, they don't say anything. So they don't have any murder, they don't have bodies, they don't have anything. So they they get them arrested on, like evading law enforcement or, not necessarily, maybe kidnapping, like
cooperating. I can't. There was a kidnapping charge somewhere.
there was a kidnapping. There was like a not taking care of your kids type of charge, like these random charges.
Yeah.
They didn't know where the kids were. They didn't have bodies, but they knew they must have had something to do with the disappearance. So it's any charges they could relate to that. And she's so cute. Okay, so then,
while all this is happening too, everyone's asking her, where are the kids? Where are the kids? And that's why I like took off nationally or internationally, I'm sure, because it's like, how can a mom act so cold and just so
right? It was also very bizarre.
So strange. If you're looking for she wasn't even attempting to look for the kids. Obviously, we know why, but
she wouldn't answer questions. They were just like, they're just walking around Kauai like it's no big deal that their kids are missing, right? And at this point, like we know now that they were dead, but we didn't know that then. And I remember seeing all of the news footage and seeing some of the datelines of 2020s or whatever on it. Because they didn't know at that point when those things aired, they didn't know where the kids were. So it was like, that was the point of the story. Of course, now we know. So I don't know, they plead not guilty, whatever. Colby then goes to the bond hearing for Lori. He sees Chad. He's like, Lori's completely made up weird. I'm like, that's jailhouse makeup. You do what you can, So then we go to Colby playing a phone call with his mom in jail. And his mom is talking about like the story from the Bible of Abraham and Isaac, which is like, oh, you have to kill your son. It's a test of faith. So like right when he goes to Abraham goes to put the knife to Isaac's throat, God stops him and said, no, don't do it, whatever, as a test of faith. Right. And so Colby's like, why? When I'm asking about my siblings every day, why are you bringing up that story? Like, something ain't right. You're fucking
very
crazy,
strange.
Mom. Yeah. You're crazy cakes. All these calls from jail kept saying you kept saying the kids are fine. Never hurt them. Her mom believed her when she said kids are fine. I would never hurt them. Shortly after that, mom and aunt went on the news defending her. Right. They're like, oh, she would never hurt her kids. I don't know what's happening, but she's fine. She didn't do anything wrong. We learned later that they changed their mind on that stance, but that's where it was at that time. Somewhere in this investigation, they traced Alex's phone, and it had pinged in Chad's backyard for 2 hours. Right around that same time, Tammy's phone gets a text from Chad, this whole cock and bull story about having to shoot a raccoon and bury it in the pet cemetery. Which obviously
very specific story too, really
oddly
random.
Specific, but obviously is a way to explain a shot fired and burial, in the ground. Because what we learn is that Alex had killed and buried, or we think Alex killed them, whatever. We don't know for sure, but Alex at least had buried the kids in the backyard of the pet cemetery. So it's like, Chad concocts this oddly specific story to text to Tammy to explain those things away.
You're saying hi.
Hi, baby. So then we do another search warrant on Chad's house, and this is in the backyard digging, and they find the bodies. Everyone's arrested and charged at this point with the murders of the children. So they found the 2 bodies of JJ and Tylee. They discovered they date it at like right around their disappearance, the time of their disappearance. And that at this point, like they determine Lori is not competent to stand trial. She goes to the nut house for a while. Chad and Lori are indicted not just on the kids' deaths, but Chad is also indicted for Tammy's death, and Lori is also indicted for conspiracy to commit murder on Charles. Lori is in the nut house claiming not to be sane. She's eventually found competent, and that was in April of 2022 of this past year. And now they're in trial preparations. trial papers moving forward. They're all in jail, I think. I don't know if anyone's out on bond right now. Yeah, I doubt. Because they're flight risk. They're flight risk. Trial's currently scheduled in like early April, I don't know, maybe of 2023. Don't know if it'll actually go on at that time, but that's what it's scheduled for, and it is a death penalty case. Now, so that's where it is legally. The documentary itself ends in a very nice way, which is Colby, Casey, and their daughter Riley in Kauai. They're doing like this honoring sort of ceremony where they're talking about JJ and Tylee, and they do the, they take the leis and put them in the water, and it's very touching to me. I've actually had the honor and privilege of being able to scatter someone's ashes in Hawaii. My dear friend Heather, her brother had passed away and had spent a great deal of time in Hawaii and wanted part of him there, so they had sent me some of his remains, and then I went out and I did like a ceremony and scattered and the leis, and it was a whole thing.
Sweet.
Yeah, so seeing them do this, especially in Hawaii, I'd lived in Hawaii for a number of years, so I have, sort of a special connection to the islands as well. And I just love seeing it end on that note, right? They've got their daughter. And I just have to, can we talk about Kelsey's white flowy outfit here? I am dying. So I'm in love with that outfit. That is, oh my God. If you watch the show, like fast forward to the end, maybe I'll find a picture of it or whatever, but it is this amazing white, like flowy, like top and, pants. And it's just, she looks so good. I love it. I love that white flowy outfit. I might need to contact you to find that out, what it is. Let's just end with a completely superficial and shallow. So Kaya has something to say. What does Kaya have to say?
Yeah, Kaya, do you want to say something now that you're up from your nap?
Did you have good dreams?
Yeah. Who was in your dreams? Now you're going to be quiet?
She's like, why is Auntie Kat talking from the box on this?
Where's your nose? No. Yeah, where's your mouth?
No. Can I have a kisses?
Can you give her a kiss?
Oh, thank you. Thank you, love. Well, so this was kind of a marathon session talking about this story. There are a lot of other details to the story. Okay.
So much to talk about.
So much. There's a lot that was in this docuseries that we obviously can't talk about every single detail. Highly recommend you go watch it. If you're as obsessed with this story as I am, go find the 2020, go find the Dateline. There's a podcast about it, all of that. And that has a lot more details to all of this stuff. And we will continue to follow this case, obviously, since we're both true crime nuts. We just, I don't know. I don't know if I have anything appropriate to in closing on this topic, but I mean,
I know. I guess hopefully there'll be justice for the children, and I don't know how that will show up, but
I mean, it sounds like there's so much evidence. If they have enough evidence that they didn't even talk about all the things that led them to be able to indict on all of this stuff, right? There's obviously the stuff that they show us that make it clear that they're guilty of stuff, but they've got to have so much more evidence that, that they killed him. They're not giving us any details in these docuseries about like more about Alex's whereabouts, how they place him besides just the pinging location. And I mean, that explains how they had reason to go to Chad's backyard, but like, what else do they know about what Alex did that led them to believe he killed on behalf of, was there planning? I feel like there's
evidence, because I feel like they weren't smart. So
I feel like there's so much more stuff out there that we're going to see at some point. Like you said, during the trial, maybe like this evidence will come out.
Yeah. And they didn't even discuss what happened to those poor babies. And I'm sure everything will come out, and it's just awful and disgusting. We know a little bit about what happened.
Yeah. But we know about like the red pajamas, and then they flash to a picture of the kid wearing the red pajamas. I was like, oh no, I don't know. But there are so many other details to this stuff, you guys. And highly recommend you go watch them all, start listening to this. Let us know if there's other stuff that you want us to cover. I know we have lots of things that we're watching right now. Well, at least that I am. You're kind of busy being, single mom and getting your doctorate. But a few more months, right? Few more months.
Yes, almost there.
Almost there.
Guys,
And we will be back. Go join the Facebook group if you want to talk and join us, talk about it. We've got a lot of good stuff coming on the horizon. And thank you all for tuning in today. And bye, Lexi. Bye, Kaya.